Good evening. Welcome to the Concerned Citizens for Good Government meeting. As you know, at our last meeting 2 weeks ago, we had the prominent environmentalist and concerned citizen Harold Shuffler Jr., who presented his positions, authorities, and arguments against the placement of I-49 Lafayette corridor. Now, tonight we have Bill Fontenot, who is an authority on the I-49 Lafayette corridor. Carol Bodwin is going to give us a rundown on his curriculum, but he had been with the Department of Transportation and Development in the state of Louisiana for over 35 years, so he ought to be able to answer all your questions. Now, after he gives his presentation, we'll have our usual question and answer session. Okay. How's it? It's a little bit better?
Yes.
Not much? Can you hear me, Larry?
If you talk right into the mic,
There we go. Can you hear me, Larry? Can you hear me, Sally? We're going to ask that Carol Bodwin come up to the podium and introduce Bill Fontenot. And it's going to be followed by questions and answers. Thank you so much.
Good evening, members and guests. We appreciate everyone being here with us. We have a gentleman that certainly has, in other words, can probably answer most of your questions, and he would be willing and happy to do that. Bill was sworn in for his second four-year term as St. Landry Parish President on January 11, 2016. He ran unopposed during his past November election. His administration has moved forward on a number of important projects to improve the quality of life in St. Landry Parish. Most recently, for the first time in the history of the parish, the voters passed a tax for a rural road improvement program. As a licensed professional engineer, Bill worked for the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development, DODT, for 38 years. And we're certainly happy to have him here this evening. Thank you, Bill, for being with us.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Sure.
I'm up. You're up.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. I think there's more people here than there were at my inauguration. So thank you for being here. Hi, Miss Sarah. Just for you all to know, Miss Sarah and Mr. Harold, I don't know if Mr. Harold didn't make it.
He's Boy Scouting.
Oh, yeah. They are my good friends, and we've done some good things together. Was it Big Al? Was the tree?
Mr. Al. I heard about that again.
Or Mr. Al, yeah.
Somebody today about
Yeah, well, that was a nice effort that you all helped us do. Thanks, Miss Sarah. Well, it's, I guess it all goes around, you know. First of all, I want to commend you as a concerned citizens group for reaching out for information, because I always did feel that was one of the most important jobs we could do in government, was to come to every public meeting that we were invited to share with you the best information that we had. And I'm talking about when I was at DOTD, and of course now I'm in government, but at the local level, I'm the president of St. Landry Parish Government, and still a professional engineer, and that's kind of an odd marriage, but really it works pretty well because the job there is similar to what it was at DOTD, managing assets, a lot of them infrastructure, highways included, and as mentioned in the bio, St. Landry Parish now is paving roads, which it has never done ever in the history of the parish. So it's in fact, we had to send out people in advance to let the neighborhoods know that we weren't being attacked, that these were paving machines that was coming down the road, you know, because we had never seen those before. So it was not an act of terrorism, it was paving. So I'm here to really basically take any questions you may have. I see here down in the corner, Deidre from DOTD has come in, and I'm glad Deidre is here. Deidre is a local public information officer here at DOTD. And it's a job that I did entirely when I was the administrator at DOTD, and maybe I'm the fault of them having a PIO now, because you know, maybe they weren't that excited about the information that I was putting out there, because I didn't always fly the company line, you know. I was pretty outspoken because I think the government should be totally transparent and tell you what we know is going on. And I'll tell you the history as I know it, the best I can tell you about this project. And I want to tell you this project is 20 plus years old. We have articles in the archives since 1940s about building 4-lane from Lafayette to New Orleans. So that's, we've come a long, long way. And let me say to those who, let me just tell you that we've come a long way in government. There's something called NEPA. You know, we talk in acronyms, the National Environmental Protection Act. That was passed by the Congress in 1972. Prior to that, the government would, government officials, engineers would draw a line on a map, decide they were going to build a road, and just built it. And if you didn't want to give your property, they would expropriate your property. So laws were passed to take your property, of course, pay you what it was valued at, and pretty much didn't give a darn what the impacts were. Well, in 1972, they passed the National Environmental Protection Act, which said, and it's been amended a few times, but always, I think, amended to give the citizens more voice. So it's to hear all the voices. What NEPA does, it is that if you're going to spend a penny of federal dollars, that you should you should actually make a very intense study to determine what the natural and human impacts are, as though humans weren't a part of the natural environment. The human and natural environment is what we needed to address. What are the impacts to the natural and human environment? Those are words in NEPA. So we do that today, and we do that, and that takes a very extensive analysis, very expensive. That's why projects take a long time. And that's why my career spanned from 1973 to 2011, 38 years. In the last 18, I was the regional administrator here in Lafayette region. There are 9 of those in the region, and I think it's still structured that way. And basically, you end up with a document like we have now for I-49, which has, I know that it's this thick, it's in the library, and it's also on the website. Did we ever get on the website, Deidre? The ROD, the Record of Decision?
We have every single document related
All right.
to the
So I don't know how many pages that would show up on the, but you can get it on, I think it's called the connector.com, something to that effect.
or the DOTD website. They can go to either one.
Yeah, because I dialed it up today to look up a few things. But anyway, it was a very extensive document. And you'll find that most of them are, but for the connector, it was actually took 2 binders. And it's in the library. It's an official legal document that the Federal Highway Administration approved, calling it the Record of Decision. And when you get a Record of Decision, it means that you've done all the due diligence to determine what those natural and human environmental impacts are relative to the projects. To the specific project. It also defines a purpose and need, and if you get a Record of Decision, that's quite a milestone. The Record of Decision on this project was 2003, and I'll tell you, since then, just to tell you how advanced things are, because we know they take a long time to get funded, and this one now has a price tag of, I think, $750 million, and that was what was in the Record of Decision, and we all know it probably costs something more than that. But it basically approves the route of the highway. It selects a path. Had many public meetings that I attended because I was working here at the time. So a lot of public input. And the real, I want to say one of the fundamental pieces of that ROD was that the people would have a say in how the project would be built. So that way it would do all that it could to mitigate any adverse impacts to the neighborhood, even help to revitalize the community in the area in which it passes. And so all that was done, that needed to be done to build a project, and let me say this too, DOTD and the Federal Highway Administration are not hell-bent on building a highway through Lafayette. I mean, there are plenty of other places that people want highways built. People build highways, not the DOTD or the Federal Highway Administration. people build highways. It's people and their congressmen, legislators, and local government officials that brought this highway to fruition, or brought this highway to this point. So if we're gonna follow that path and do all the due diligence, I think from the professional engineering point of view and the environmentalist point of view that have a lot to do with studying the impacts, all the due diligence was done. We even went through a lawsuit relative to the record of decision, and the lawsuit said that the DOTD and the state had done all that was required to do under the law. And in fact, in this project, like I was saying, the record of decision even has more to it than just saying, okay, now we've identified the impacts and we've identified the mitigation. It says that as part of the project, you will have a context-sensitive solution, which means that you will, which is where we are now, basically. We're at a point where this project that's underway now, this funded consultant contract, is about visiting with the community, interviewing citizens, intense meetings with the community on how you would like it to look in the area of construction. I mean, basically, I don't know anybody here could argue that there's a congestion problem here in Lafayette, congestion problem there. We got a wall of traffic on the thruway. I'll just tell you from my simple point of view that the wall is there right now. It keeps you from actually connecting east to west in that area. So if you think of it in this way, you get the traffic up in the third dimension, then it's all out of the way, and all you got to deal with is a few columns and make sure that the connectivity doesn't impact your community where we're going to connect with 2 or 3 interchanges. And that's where the community, I encourage you to be involved, go to the meetings, the community workshop. In fact, the paper that I passed out to you today is One Acadiana, your One Acadiana, my One Acadiana. One Acadiana is a transformation of the Lafayette Chamber to a regional chamber. St. Landry Parish is part of that regional chamber, as are 8 other parishes. And the president and CEO just coincidentally sent out this monthly membership address. And on the second page, he talks about Saturday, January 23rd, at the Progressive Community Outreach Center, where there will be, well, let's just read it. One Acadiana is deeply engaged in the connectors on the second page, under number 3, the first paragraph under the bullets. One Acadiana is deeply engaged in the connector planning process, currently underway, and we strongly encourage our directors, investors, members, partners, and the Lafayette community to participate in the once-in-a-generation opportunity to fashion a creative and transformative solution that improves our transportation infrastructure and helps create a strong framework for Lafayette's urban revitalization. Make note of the public events scheduled over the coming months where you can contribute your ideas. The first public design charrette will take place this Saturday, January 23rd, at the Progressive Community Outreach Center. That's at 125 Galleon Street, which is on the corner of Pinhook and I have it written right here.
Simcoe.
Yeah, Simcoe and Pinhook, right. And so I encourage you to be there. I would say that I would describe this phase is called a conceptual design. If you read on the internet, it's to last about 18 to 24 months, whatever it takes to get all the input from the citizens in deciding how best to handle the community development in the region or in the immediate area where the project will be built. It's also to get some design ideas from the community on how you'd like to see it. The idea is to build it high so that the natural light can come in, where you can build a community. Instead of the thruway being congested at 60,000 cars a day, it'll just be part of the community network of community roads where you can actually drive without so much congestion and be able to connect east and west in that area, hopefully revitalizing the area with, there's also what's called a TIGER grant. TIGER stands for Transportation Investment Generating Economic Recovery, and that's another piece of federal dollars that will allow for local government to invest in some aesthetic additions to that space that will be in the right-of-way. The Federal Highway Administration will, in this case, be very user-friendly and agreeable to using that space. If you go down to Morgan City, you will see there's spaces under the bridge there and really not designed as high as this one will be designed where the space is being used. So the federal government has, and the state government have moved this NEPA process to as close to the people as possible, but has to follow what's in the records decision as far as alignment, basic location, amount of lanes and that kind of thing. So it has a regional impact. It's not just a Lafayette project, it's a regional project. This project sort of got a new life back in the 90s when I was a young district administrator. We had the mayors and parish presidents and parish governments all the way from New Orleans to Lafayette involved on a trip up and down the, it's called the Coalition, I-49 Coalition. It had meetings. It was a matter of the public leaders and business leaders pushing a project that all felt was necessary for economic development, for hurricane evacuation, for safety, and actually resolving some of the local traffic congestion. So I stand here a little, of course that's what time will do when it takes generations to build them, because I made many public addresses like this when I was a district administrator at DOTD, and I can't tell you the bumps and bruises I had about when are you going to build it? Why not? Why not? And today I stand and I think people are saying, why? So I think those who said why not and when are still out there. I think there's a greater majority and a great consensus with the businesses. The energy corridor is what it's called. So I think the best thing for us to do as a community is to get on board with the process, since it's an open process, it's an inviting process. In fact, so far, the process has actually been changed a little bit to make it a little more user-friendly since we've had one or two meetings. So it does work when you let the government know what is not suiting you. So some of the meetings, it was felt that not enough of the message or there was not enough interchange. So now that's being modified a little bit. And you'll hear more about that on January 23rd on the Saturday if you come. And if you can't come, the minutes are going to be on that same website. So we're trying to make this, I say we, I think those who are involved in traffic planning and management, which can be all of us in this case, come to the meetings, get informed, ask the questions, and be sure you get an answer. And we talk about things in government, about economic development, about jobs. We all want jobs, and especially now with the downturn of the oil industry, we need jobs. We need jobs. I know in my career at DOTD, because of the Evangeline Thruway and its congestion, that there were a couple of missed opportunities. I can say it now, it was a secret then, but the Walmart distribution plant that located up in Opelousas was set to locate just south of Lafayette. When they did enough study, they did enough visits, and they saw the congestion going up the Thruway, they picked up in north of Opelousas on the interstate. Because interstate in any language is understood that it's free-flowing, it doesn't have traffic signals. So even when our leaders go to China and other countries, they want to be near an interstate. So that's what it brings: economic development, it brings jobs. It's a project that's for the greater good. It's not, but certainly when you build it for the greater good of the people, you don't want to damage, and you want to mitigate damages. And I'll tell you, the process allows for advanced acquisition. I know when I retired in 2011, we had almost 40 acquisitions already with regard to properties in the corridor, because the footprint has been identified. And with a record of decision, the law allowed for the properties to be purchased, that were going to be purchased, that were going to be needed, but it was only amicable. It could not be expropriation. So many people, as much as almost 40 before I left, and there may be a few more since, that have come forward and said, I'm willing to sell, my land, so let's negotiate. And you can get your own appraiser. The DOTD has a process. You got a federal laws. They don't steal your property or try to take advantage. They make sure you get the full value of your property. That's what the process says we must do. That's what the law says we must do. Now today on my lapel I have I-49, and on my red shirt I have Raging Cajun, so I'm hoping to get out of here without too many bruises to let you know. And I know there's some people here that's originally from Ville Platte, and that's where I'm from too, originally. So, but I've worked here virtually all of my adult life, went to USL, I'm a civil engineer. I'm proud to be among you and live among you. My children and grandchildren live here. So I'm not hell-bent on seeing anybody harmed either. I think as smart people, we should just get involved and whatever those rules are. And I think they've, like I said, they've come a long way from just drawing a line and ramming it through. So, you know, somebody, and I think here in Jason, this is Jason L. Kuby's words, by the way. Probably, if he hadn't said it for an editorial yet, I know he said he was. I got this on Friday. And so basically I couldn't say it much better than Jason here in a lot of these things. You know, it talks about revitalization and the opportunity to use the Tiger Grant and also the context-sensitive solutions process, because a lot of projects don't have that. And so, you know, the Department of Transportation, Federal Highway know it's a sensitive issue, but it was not their idea to build it here. It was the people of Lafayette, the people in the corridor, the communities, the businesses, your congressmen, your legislators, your public officials. They got a lot of other projects they can go to build. But since this project's underway and it's got the authority to proceed, then those of us who are not that happy with it, let's get involved and learn about it and put in your 2 cents, and I believe it's going to be seriously taken into consideration. So, I mean, it has a lot of implications for successes in our area, for opportunities, for jobs. If you ever heard of multimodal is a very valuable condition. Multimodal means you have good highways in the area, and if you have interstates, that's the best. Airports, you got Lafayette Regional, Liberia Regional. You got the railroad. You got the airport. Well, I said the airport. You got ports and waterways. So when you can move a product and move it seamlessly from water to air to highways, that's valuable to seducing and attracting business to your community. Now, that doesn't mean we want all of that and we don't want to preserve and continue to live our culture, because definitely that's the most valuable piece we have is our family and our culture. So I certainly fight for that every day up in St. Landry Parish, and I believe I always represented that at DOTD as well, because I represented an 8-parish region, and I always wanted you to know the truth about what was happening. And good or bad, sometimes we screwed up things at DOTD. We might have blocked an intersection when we shouldn't have for some work, which I know we did. We got blamed one time, and the media was at the front door. And I said, yes, I'm the guy, but I'm sorry, and I'm not going to do that again. So we are open, or at least I am, to tell you and not pass the buck or throw anybody under the bus unless they deserve it, and unless it's true. Engineers deal with truths. If we don't deal with the truth, things fall down, things don't work. So the truth is to build this project to where it's compatible with the community. We need the people to be involved, and that's where we are. I don't think anything's going to change that. I don't think the train's stopping. So I'd say let's get on board and try to help drive it. So I'm ready for anything. I did the best I could when I was there, and I'm still trying as I'm still involved with the Acadiana Planning Commission, which represents still all of you, because I work with your parish president, or new parish president, your old parish president, and all the parish presidents in the region, and the MPO process. I'm the chairman of that. The MPO has this project as its #1 project. The federal government will work with you through the MPO. The MPO is what it looks. The Metropolitan Planning Organization is where projects come from the communities through the state to the Federal Highway Administration. That's a federal law. So that's where it is at this time. And so I say let's just, take on the challenge and be involved. So you don't want me to take any questions yet?
Yeah.
I think they got one. We're going to have Frank.
Frank has
We're going to have Frank as president. He has a choice of asking a couple of questions first. Frank?
Thanks again for attending our meeting.
Sure.
At the last meeting 2 weeks ago, several issues were raised, several concerns, and let me list them. One was benzene contamination at old railroad sites, concerns about shortening of the Lafayette Airport runways, and possible water well contamination along Grant Street and Buchanan Street, made worse when you have 4 large underpasses created to allow for access. Do you know if those concerns were addressed before the approval of the record of decision? And that's my question.
Sure.
Well, the record of decision and this whole, which is an approval of this NEPA process. The NEPA process says you find out everything you can about every condition in the corridor. And those were identified, those conditions in the corridor. And mitigation or reparation of the condition is going to take place under the project and under the cost of this project. So there's plenty of expertise on knowing how to clean that up. They're not inexpensive, but we're not going to, the government is certainly not going to build a project that's going to endanger the life quality of the citizens of Lafayette, or put anybody in danger. So they're going to take every precaution to do it professionally. This is done on a routine basis across probably the country, where you have a lot of these issues where you had fuel stations at one time, and we didn't have such good fuel tanks, and you had a lot of leaks, and so it's called hazard mitigation. So yeah, there is some hazard mitigation plans in the project, or certainly written in bold letters that it will have to be taken care of as part of the project. So, those issues were identified to be taken care of as part of the project.
Let me just follow up on that point. In your professional opinion, should any of those concerns constitute a current barrier to the design and the construction of the I-49 Lafayette corridor?
My professional opinion is no, because if it would, then it would have probably been, the route would have probably been discounted as a viable route. Because if it's something that could not be mitigated, could not be repaired, could not be brought up to a condition that's better than what it is, then it probably would have discounted that route as being a preferred alternative. So there's no doubt in my mind that the professional expertise is there to remedy these situations. Expensive, but the remedies are there.
I understand that some federal grant money has been funded over the last 18 months with reference to what you refer to as conceptual design, outreach and engagement. And I believe it started October 2015 to seek mitigation or lessening of potential urban blight and all that. Is that the usual course, or is it, some people are talking like, well, the federal government is trying to talk me into this being a good location. Is that a usual process? We're just further along in the development stage, one step closer to completion of the construction itself?
Well, identifying project, identifying resources that are available to actually do more than just build a highway, but to revitalize a community, that's what made these funds available. And I believe that's what got them approved. So that's something extra that came with this project, because a good case was made that this money would be used to revitalize a section of town that would need revitalization, and it probably would not have come, this money, without this project. So I would say more than likely the project, I'm confident, if built correctly with your input, should be a better community once the project is built.
Thank you very much.
We encourage questions, and the only thing we ask is that you come up to the mic so we can turn around, and because this is filmed and well done, Mr. Ed Gote. We appreciate everything he does for us. But anyway, if you have a question, please come up. Jeff,
Well, maybe she could just.
she let you have because that's the question that you have.
I don't want the mic. I can speak loud enough. Come on. We've done a lot of work together.
I think most everyone here knows who I am, but I'm going to tell those of you who don't know. Diet Pepsi. Over here. Am I to understand, or did I misunderstand, that the plan is already there where to put the I-49? Is that, I suppose that question would be to you, but is it already in cement that where you're planning to put that I-49 connector? The meeting we had 2 weeks ago, I understood that it had not been resolved yet where we should put the I-49 connector. And it was my understanding that maybe the people who are going to be going to the meetings would have a say-so. Do we have a say-so as to where the I-49 is going to go? Is that already established?
A lot of work has been done to evaluate several alternative routes, and a preferred alternative has been recommended and approved by the federal government. So with the help of the citizens and input of the citizens here in this city and in this region. So yes, now within that corridor, moving a little bit, a few feet one way or the other to make a design better, that's probably open to discussion, but basically the route is in place, yes.
That's what I thought I understood. I really thought we were going to have a say-so in where it was going to be. But I will tell you this, today's paper, USA, Flint, Michigan, is having trouble with their water. And I understand that our I-49, as it stands now, is going to go by where we do have water resources. And I want to go on record right now to say that I don't want I-49 to go anywhere where it will disturb or mess up our water. It may not do it right away, but 30 years from now it may do it. So I certainly hope that they have given that really careful consideration.
Thank you. Thank you. And if all the engineers and everybody has anything to do with this project, or like me, you will be safe. They're going to take every precaution to be sure any issues like that would be mitigated.
Come on back, sister. Come on back, sister. Come on back, sister.
My name's Patty Carter. I have a question on the money that's been distributed so far. Has any money been distributed with the Tiger grant? And also, has any money been distributed through the conceptual design monies that have been afforded this project?
Sure. When you mean distributed, the money's been approved and contracts are in place to spend that money. Probably not much money been expended yet, except maybe some partial payments for consultant work.
Also, I was wondering if the Acadiana Planning Commission, of which you are a part, will receive any funding from any of these grants.
To my knowledge, absolutely not.
Last question, I was wondering if you could tell us in detail, how does an elevated highway revitalize an area?
Well, do you think the Thruway now, I'm not being ugly, but the Thruway now, do you like it the way it is with that wall of traffic, 60 to 70,000 vehicles a day, and you got congestion on each side, and you can't really negotiate through it very good. And if you've ever been here when there's hurricane evacuation, they actually shut down all the cross streets, and you gotta go somewhere else. So
Did you ever consider buying the land in the middle and widening
oh yeah, well
the
it
lane on each side?
will take all of that to build this structure. If you look at it this way, the way I see it, again, like I mentioned earlier, and maybe it's tough to visualize, and maybe it's really a silly, but I don't think it is. All this traffic that's on the thruway, if you build it up, if you put it up here, put it as high as you can, then it's out of the way of any revitalization that you want to take place. Right now, you can't revitalize where the thruway space is, but once you get the bridge up here, all of that space within the bridge structure and under the structure will be able to be used as part of the community. There will be some common, what they call common places, I believe is what it's called, common space. Yeah, so you can use that for police stations, fire stations, parks, community, any kind of community development activities.
Well,
Sure.
will the citizens of the community, what will be their part in paying for this project? LCG.
Can't hear you.
The question,
I was wondering if LCG, I was wondering what portion and cost of this project will fall on the citizens of this community, or LCG?
Well, I can't answer that specifically yet, because when you take on this funding that allows for the planning, which is a cost, then whatever you want to build that will cost over and above what qualifies for federal and state, then it will be up to local government to come up with a funding mechanism to do with whatever and whichever they want. But that'll come over a process of time, and you should be pretty well advised in advance because of this planning process. And I think as you go, and I encourage you to go to the planning process, there will be a lot of discussion and interaction about that. But it will be mostly in local government's hands to make that decision, because whatever you qualify for, certainly state and feds will try to fund that. But some things will probably not qualify that you will.
Hi, Sarah Shuffler. I'm sure Flint, Michigan had all of their trust in their local governments and state governments as well too. In 2003, I don't know who did the EIS. I'm sure the EPA, whoever does EISs, but they obviously did not go as deep into it as a federal court suit did. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals found that Union Pacific was guilty of damages to the Conco group down there, and Conco sued them. They won the lawsuit, and in reading all of this, you find that there's damages, there's hazardous waste, there's contamination down as deep as 42 feet underneath the surface. There's contamination in our groundwater. You go 8 feet deeper than 42 feet and you're at your Chico Aquifer. And so these are concerns, and this is something that came up in 2007. It was a court decision, it's a federal court decision, it's a done deal there as well. And so are we going to take on that expense, or is Union Pacific Railroad going to take on that expense like they've taken on that expense all over this state? Or does that become us, the taxpayers' expense to clean up their contamination? And then you go up the street a little north of there and you find the old Grant Street utility system that has just as much contamination. They've had to buy out businesses there to make settlements with them. So we've got a lot of contamination. It's not just something that you're going to come in and easily fix and make well. I think this is something that we need to, as the public, demand that they take care of our water. In reading some of the the information in this federal case, they just talk about conduits. That's what gets all of this contamination moving. And if we go down putting pilings into this contamination, we're developing conduits for this contamination to just flow and keep flowing. This way, that way, and down, which is worse. One of the other things I wanted to know is, Deidre, if we expect the Lafayette Consolidated Government to pay anything, they can't even handle the horse farm over here. They have given that over to another group to take care of. How are they going to maintain and set up parks that will be viable? Let's see. Oh, and do we have the money to do this after we do $20 million plus another $1 million in your Tiger grant of studying how we can do this beautifully? Do we have the funds to pay for it?
I will say that I don't think all those funds have been identified yet, but first of all, they're not needed yet because they're not needed until you have a design. So I'm very encouraged over my career that I've seen progress programmatically get to a conclusion that eventually I'm confident, because of the purpose and need and importance of this project, that it will be eventually over time funded. It may be in phases, but to say the money's there today, it's not necessary today. But there's a lot of action going on. You have a new DOTD secretary who's very familiar with the funding process. This is one of the times that we've had a DOTD secretary picked from a lot of good experience with working with the feds. He's been down in the background at DOTD working on a lot of issues that are very complicated. So Sean Wilson is going to do, I believe, a spectacular and exceptional job because he knows the process at the federal and state level. And I believe he has a governor that's going to give him the authority to do what's necessary to make the public outreach, the federal outreach to the feds, and to make the necessary accommodations for these projects to be built as much as resources will allow at the federal and state level. So I think we're in good hands. I think we're in hands that want to see projects built and built correctly. We want to do it right. You can always say you want to do the right thing, but more importantly, doing it right. Like you're talking about the water, we sure want to do it right. We do not want to end up with any contaminations. And maybe we need to have a session or two just on that. And I know the DOTD and Sean would welcome that. So that's why you need to keep coming and keep talking, and we bring those issues to the table.
Thank you for coming and speaking tonight. My question is, we've heard that there were groups from out of state that came in to present pictures of what these elevated highways have done in other cities and how attractive the land is underneath. But I think in my limited experience, and perhaps what's limited in some of you, I've only seen New Orleans and Baton Rouge. And the areas underneath those elevated interstate highways are tragic. And what I would like to ask is, can we see some pictures on the internet of those cities that are bragging about how attractive their elevated highways are?
Yes, in fact, I believe if you go to that website, they do send you to a link where there are at least 3, maybe 4 that are prospering with that type of revitalization. Yes, they are. And Baton Rouge and New Orleans many times were spoken of during the NEPA process to get to the record of decision to not build it that way. So it's well documented that we need to have them high, because the darkness, the low profile of those bridges is really what contributes to a dungeon-looking space. So we're going to raise them high enough to where you get some natural light in there and be more high-spirited, more high energy, better synergy in the community, we hope. And I'm confident we will.
Bill, how are they going to be?
I don't know yet. That's something we need to talk about.
Deidre might be able to address that, how high they're gonna be.
My name is Lester Goche, and my question does relate. The higher up the highway, the longer it's going to take for that exit to come down. Right. And is 4-degree grade? Is that the industry standard? 4 degree?
I can't answer that. I mean, the standards change all the time.
All right. Does 4 degrees? Does that jump out at you as something that's just not possible or not feasible?
That's a technical question you need to, I would say that's a technical question you need to bring to the technical committee. And there are all types of designs, not only just straight, but there are circular, spiral. So, you know, there are designs that can minimize the length of the area that's...
The issue is, the higher the elevation, the further it's going to take for the exit. In other words, it's going to take, in my estimation, 3 to 4 blocks to come down off of that interstate. When you come 3 to 4 blocks down off, for example, the 2nd and 3rd Street, or the Congress feeder, if you had an exit there, you'd end up almost at Pierce Street, which is even with Dwyer's. That is to say, Pierce becomes Garfield, and it's not that far from Dwyer's Cafe. The exit might go all the way down to Pierce Street if it takes 3 to 4 blocks. That's taking up a lot of that area.
Well, I think you need to come to the session because they can be designed in different ways, and I think you got to determine the angle of your departure also. I mean, if you go perpendicular, yeah, you'll go out into the city, but you can go parallel to the structure as well, or spiral. So there's going to be mitigative designs. So come to the technical committee.
Hi, my name's Ed. I'm beginning to have legal dreams. Okay, what was the name of the court finding that has nailed this route down?
ROD.
It is not a court finding. It's a part of a federal process that when you get to a point where the state does its due diligence regarding a project that's wanted by the people, looking at the impacts, this is the whole process that requires states or local governments to go through to get federal money. That's the NEPA process. And when you have used the process to clear your project environmentally, then the approval by the Federal Highway Administration is called a record of decision. That doesn't take going to court. So, but there was some court proceedings when someone challenged or some group challenged the record of decision, and they did not win.
Okay, I just needed that name to phrase my question. Sure. My question is, why couldn't we as a people get a class action lawsuit and back that decision down? We got a couple of lawyers here. Lester was up here a minute ago, and I know you're a lawyer. And I just kind of want to know, is this thing actually written in cement, or could we get out the big eraser and just change it and decide we want the route going where we want it? I don't mind saving the lives of 100,000, 200,000 people that live down there in the south part of the state, and they got to get out fast when there's a hurricane coming. They can come through here, I don't mind that, but they got to come through our way.
Well, that idea is already... I mean, that's a grand idea. Get a lawyer and do it, but that's already been done and lost. So you can try again, but it's been lost. You've tried that already. There has been a group that has brought it to court.
Hi, I'm Woody Martin. I'd like to go back to a question that Sarah Shuffler just raised that was not answered, and I think Bill Fontenot may know how this goes, so I would like to pose this question again, and I think it's a fairness issue, really. And that is, we know from rail yard sites all over the country that there's going to be contamination in there. They dump diesel oil, and they use toxic organic chemicals to clean the machinery, and there's all kind of metals in there. So we can assume that there's contamination in there. Why? And Bill has said that we'll get it cleaned up, but that means the taxpayers are going to pay for it. Why don't we make the railroad clean up the rail yard that they messed up before we, so that we, the taxpayers, don't have to foot that cost, because it could be a substantial cost. And I'll just keep it to one question and hope I can get an answer.
Yeah.
Bill.
Thank you, Hugh, and you've always been a good questioner and to the point. The DOTD and the federal government will do everything within its power under the law to pass that cost or have that cost taken up by those who provided the damage. So if it, however, if they can do it legally, they will. They will at all, with every bit of fiber of their energy, they're going to try to have those who contaminated dig it up. But there are, you got to go through the courts to do it. But they will try. But there's no guarantee. I'm just saying that it will be done, one way or the other. The private will have to do it, and or the government, yes, if we're going to build this road, yes. But yes, the government is going to do its best to get the railroad to clean it up, or whoever did the damage.
My name is Bill Hayes. I got a comment about all this that's been said about how much money is going to be thrown at making this thing pretty and nice and wonderful. I remember 10 years ago or so, Mike Ollier and company was really pushing hard for this really nice development of the Ambassador Caffrey extension going out to Highway 90. There's going to be a linear park on both sides. And it's like a lot of time and money and effort and talk was spent on that. And of course, the thing was built, and of course, you go out there, you don't see any nice linear park on either side, and because it costs the money that it would cost to do it. So, and I suspect that when it comes down to brass tacks, when this thing goes to be built, they'll probably find that there's not going to be the money to make this thing as nice and everything as we're being told it's going to be nice.
Can't hear you, sir.
I'm expecting that
That's why.
it's not going to be as nice and wonderful as they're talking about it, because by the time they get to that point, they're going to say, well, we don't have any money left for it. Another thing, I went to a presentation a couple of months ago, and there's a fellow from the Airport Commission who was talking about how the runway is going to have to be relocated to accommodate the highway the way it's being talked about right now, and it's going to cost about $300 million to do it. But then he said, well, it's going to be, the federal government's going to cover it. Well, so that means it's free, right? Yeah. I mean, the money's just going to magically appear to cover moving the runway just to accommodate the highway. There's a number of things that, I mean, we don't know the extent of the pollution, the contamination of these sites we're talking about. We know it's there. There's no, I mean, how much money in the budget as it stands now, how much money is allocated to that open-ended question of how much contamination there is to remediate? You know? Don't know. Okay, so there's a problem there. We don't know the extent of it. They probably threw a number at it. It could easily end up being twice whatever the number is or more of the number that they threw at it. And then we're told that it's set in stone, plus or minus a few feet here or there. The roadway is going to go in where we're told it's going to be. And of course, and we're also told that's where we want it. You know, the people want this road right here. Except for some cheerleaders in the Chamber of Commerce, I can't really hardly find anybody that really wants it where we're being told it's going to be. And you're saying that there's no mechanism to change it. No mechanism to change the route to where it is right now.
Not in this project.
not in this project. Well, why don't we just kill this project and start over again?
Well, I would advise you to take that to your political leaders, because that's what it would take. And I'll also tell you that it's been over 50 years in the making, and if you change the route, I guess that'll be about 4 or 5 generations before you see it, so another 40, 50 years, if that's okay with the community, and okay with the tradition.
I don't see what the hurry is to get it right. I mean, the Evangeline Thruway, as it stands, was a mistake that was done 50 or so years ago. I mean, when they laid out the Evangeline Thruway, they were careful to go around all the little towns, Opelousas, New Iberia, Franklin. They went outside the towns. Lafayette, as I understand it, went through the town because it was demanded at that time by the city leaders, the property owners, the business people on Jefferson Street in downtown. They wanted to go through the town, close to downtown, so downtown wouldn't dry up, shrivel up and die. Well, 10 years after it was put in, it shriveled up and died anyway. So we're compounding, we're talking about compounding an abomination that was done 50 or so years ago by running this thing through where Evangeline Thruway is now. When you could run it outside, you could transform Evangeline Thruway into a very nice parkway, inviting people into town. People saying, I mean, I've heard it said that if we don't run it through Lafayette, then people won't stop in Lafayette. Well, that's baloney. People aren't going to accidentally just drive by Lafayette if it doesn't come down directly through Lafayette. Lafayette is a destination. A lot of people come here just specifically for Lafayette. Anyway, I could say more, I'm going to let it go there.
I'll just say I'm here for the facts, and to just tell you what I know factually as some of the history, and so misinformation doesn't help. And Mr. Bill, with all due respect, you provided quite a bit of misinformation there about $300 million to relocate the runway and all that. That's not true.
But it's still going to cost money.
It does cost money, the entire project does. But this should be about how do you make it the best you want it to be, if it's gonna be. If you don't want to take that opportunity, then you'll just let that pass. That'll be your choice.
Did you want to have a question?
Yep, Mike has one.
Well, as many of you know,
Step closer.
there's a thing called the non-attainment area, which is when a municipality exceeds its ozone limits, you can go into non-attainment, which means that there are consequences that you'll have to get more extensive car inspections. Your car will fail inspection if you put out too many pollutants out of your tailpipe. There'll be tailpipe inspections. And also there can be restrictions on industrial expansion in the area that's in non-attainment for air pollution. So we almost were in non-attainment. And then the federal government changed the standards. So now we're just a little bit outside of being non-attainment area. Baton Rouge is probably going to be a non-attainment area. If we build a highway through the middle of the city that brings a lot of new traffic through, they're bragging about all the oil field trucks that are going to come through here. I just think there's a great chance that we're going to be in non-attainment. That'll mean every one of you are going to have to get your cars inspected. If you've got an old car, you'll have to get rid of it and get a new car. It means that industrial expansion in the area will have to be restricted so that we don't have more pollution coming into the air. Now, the reasonable thing to do is to route the traffic outside of the municipality so that it helps us to not become a non-attainment area instead of routing it through the city. And so I wonder if you could tell us what are some of the consequences that DOT is looking at on non-attainment, and was non-attainment considered in the original environmental impact statement?
I would suggest that it was indeed looked at, And if you just take your case, those same trucks are going there today and they're stopping at every light. And so they're concentrating the pollution, where if they're up in the sky going on a throughway that's nonstop, I suggest to you the air would be cleaner if you'd give them a nonstop pass in that same area than for them to stop at every light like they're doing now.
BillFontenot, I want to thank you for coming to our meeting. Sure, you appreciate that, and your many years of public service and shooting straight with all of us for such a long time. And I remember when you were at these meetings and some of these politicians would stand up and they would talk too much and they would say the road's going this way, and you were there to set them straight and say, no, the road's not going that way, it's going this way, and always been truthful and honest with reference to that. We appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Really appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We have a gentleman that works in the district that Bill worked in that would like to come, and we're allowing him to come on the 1st of February. He's with the district, with the state. And his name is Mr. Oliver, and his able assistant, this young lady right here. So if you want to have additional questions, current information, and he is with the department, he may be able to answer a question that was not answered this evening, and you're more than welcome to be here in 2 weeks, and that's the 1st of February. It's the first Monday. So that's the announcement. We appreciate all of you being here this evening. Thank you all for coming, and the meeting stands adjourned.